All right, so you're a beginner with bass fishing, you're first starting out, and you got to get yourself a rod or two. And you see all these guys on YouTube that have a ton of rods. I mean, I've got, I don't know how many rods in the boat right now, probably 30, and even more at home. So it's like, oh my gosh, I got to get all these rods. No, stop. All of us, every single one of us, including myself, when we first started out, we only had a couple of rods to begin with, and that's great. That's all you really need. You don't need a huge arsenal. So let me tell you about the three main rods that you can catch a ton of bass with and will cover most of your bases. Okay, before I get into those rods though, let's talk a little bit about action and power, because you're going to hear a lot about that. So a rod power has to do with the amount of resistance it takes to bend the rod. You'll hear like heavy power rod, which is, it's a very stout, sturdy rod, or medium power rod, which takes less resistance. It's easier to bend. A lot of times that has to do with the amount of weight of the size of the lure that you can throw. It has a lot to do with the power. So a lot of times on the rod, it'll say right on it, this is good for 1/4 ounce to 1/2 ounce weight, or 3/8 ounce to 3/4 ounce. And that's relative to the power on it. So keep that in mind. Sometimes it'll even say on the rod, like the type of techniques that it's designed for. So that's very helpful in choosing what kind of rod to use. So that power has a lot to do, and sometimes it'll even say what kind of line, like 10 to 20 pound line or something like that. That's all in relation to the power of the rod. The action has to do where the rod starts to bend. An extra fast action rod, for example, only bends right at the tip. And that is really good for sensitivity. It makes the rod super, super sensitive, great for throwing jigs, Texas rigs, soft plastics, things like that, that you need to feel the sometimes real subtle bites. And the bite sometimes can be really, really light. Well, that extra fast tip is gonna allow you to feel those bites. The problem is it only flexes right at the very end of the rod. It's very hard to cast lures that way. So a fast action rod has more bend to it at the end, right? A moderate action rod it bends almost all the way halfway down. Maybe even, well, let's say a fast action is about the top third. A moderate action rod is a little bit more than halfway down. And like a moderate would be really good for anything with treble hooks. A moderate gives a lot of bend and flex, a lot of give. So if a bait's got treble hooks on it, you're not going to rip it out of the fish's mouth by using, say, a heavy power fast action rod. So kind of keep those in mind. So let's talk about the three main rods. The first one is going to be a spinning rod, right? A medium light fast action rod, 7 foot, 7'1" spinning rod. That's a go-to rod for so many different light lures and finesse applications. That is your mainstay. It's your bread. I've got like 4 in the boat right now, rigged with different lures on it. It's that versatile. You can throw Ned rigs with it, drop shot, split shot, Nico rigs. You can throw all kinds of finesse presentations, grubs on jig heads, finesse jigs. It goes on and on. Light line and light lures. Anywhere from say 6 to 10 pound line. I would recommend 10 if you're a beginner. And you can have like 3 of these rods. This is why sometimes you see a bunch of guys have a ton of rods, you have 3 or 4 rods, but it's all the same rod. You just have, one's got a tube on it, another one's got a grub, another one's got a drop shot, another one's got a split shot, right? But it's the same rod. So one rod is fine. You can just retie and change as you need to. It's not a big deal. So you definitely got to have that with a reel that's a size 2500 or size 3000 reel. Sometimes that's referred to as size 25 or 30 reel. Same thing, just some manufacturers call it 2500 and other ones would call it a 25. That's all you need, right? Spool it up with fluorocarbon line. I would use 10 pound fluorocarbon line on it and you're good to go. You can use it for just about anything that's light. And it'll say on the rod, again, your light, your weight preferences on there, and it's going to be light, pretty much underneath 3/8 of an ounce for the most part, maybe up to 3/8 of an ounce. The next rod is a bait casting rod. And your jack of all trades bait casting rod is a 7 foot, medium heavy, fast action rod. Again, just like the spinning rod I just mentioned, you can throw a plethora of lures with it, and it's extremely versatile. This one, it's going to do really well for you because you can throw spinnerbaits, you can throw jigs, worms, topwater baits, square bells, paddle tails. It goes on and on, all the different type of baits you can use with this particular rod setup. Very, very versatile. I would put a like a 6.5 to 7:1 gear ratio reel on it. That again is a broad spectrum that's going to cover your bases on virtually all the different baits you can throw. So you don't need a super fast reel or really slow reel. And 15-pound fluorocarbon, I use Seaguar Invisix line. It's a just all-purpose, general purpose line that works for everything. Works on weeds, rocks, wood, whole 9 yards, everything. Very, very versatile. With that setup, you're going to be able to throw a lot of different lures with that bait casting outfit. The third one would be one more bait casting outfit, and this one's a little more stout. This one's like a 7.3 to 7.4 heavy power, fast action or extra fast action rod. This is for your jigs and your worms primarily. Maybe your football head jigs, things that you would have on the bottom, or throwing around heavy cover, thick weeds. You're using stronger line, now you up to braid, and I'm using like 50-pound braid on this. You're flipping, you're pitching. That's what I would use this rod for. And for frogs, when you're throwing over weed and cover and stuff where frogs can come up and pull you down on the weeds, you need something stout to be able to rip them out of that weeds and get control of them. So this is a real stout, strong rod for those techniques. With those 3 rods, you're going to pretty much cover your bases on everything. However, there's 2 more rods that I would add if you could, if your budget allows, or after you've got these 3 rods and as time goes on, you can now start to fill out your arsenal. There's 2 more rods that I would go for next. One would be a crankbait rod, designed specifically for crankbait and for topwater lures, or really anything with a treble hook. This is more of a medium power, fast action rod. Okay, so it's limber. It's got some give to it. It's got a lot of flex to it. You can throw that crankbait way out there, which works. That's good. You want a crankbait to cast way out there so it gets down to the diving depth and stays down there before it starts coming back up to you as it gets close to you. So long casts are benefit, and that's what a crankbait rod enables you to do. But also, it's got a lot of give and flex. So once you catch a fish, it's going to keep him pinned. It's not going to rip that hook out of his mouth, and that fish isn't going to be able to use that rod as leverage to get himself free, or maybe even bend the hook. It's going to instead give as the fish surges. You pair that with 12-pound fluorocarbon line, which has a little bit of stretch and give to it, and a reel that's in that 6.5 to 1 gear ratio, somewhere in there. That's going to work well for a variety of different crankbaits. It's also going to work well for topwaters like poppers and walking baits, and it's going to work well for just about any kind of bait that's got a treble hook on it. That's going to be your go-to treble hook rod and reel setup. And then the last one is on the other end of the spectrum. And this is out of a dedicated flipping and pitching rod. Wherever there's bass, there's typically areas that are really thick in weeds. Sometimes the weeds mat over, or you've got a lot of docks or a lot of sunken brush piles, or flooded bush and timber, things that bass can wrap you up around in and get snagged, or you can get your lure snagged into. This is where you've got a really stout flipping rod that's going to do the job for you. Typically it's a 7.4 to 7.6 heavy or extra heavy power fast action rod, and you're using braid, 50-pound braid. I like to use Seaguar, and I'm using a lower gear ratio. You want the lower the gear ratio, the more it's like a winch. It's got more torque to it, so like a 6 to 1 gear ratio. There's 2 sides of the coin on this. Now, typically when you're flipping jigs and worms and plastics, you're working them slow, and a lot of times the bite is on the initial fall. So you throw out there, let it fall, you lift it up, let it fall, you don't get a bite, and then you reel it back in, you make another cast. A lot of people like a faster gear ratio because they can reel up the lure real fast and cast it back out there really quick. I like a lower one because if I'm throwing in heavy stuff, I throw right into the thickest stuff, and if a bass bites it, I want to be able to winch him out of that. So I want a lower gear ratio that gives me that power and strength teamed with the power braid and the power rod. I mean, this is hand-to-hand combat in my opinion, and you can wrench him out of that thick hydrilla. You've got control. You're the one that can do this. If you've got a fast gear ratio, you don't have that type of cranking power, and the bass might win. So my opinion, but I like the lower gear ratios with a stout outfit like that. Armed with all these rods, just 5. 3 to begin with, and then you fill it out with those other 2. That's really your basics. That's gonna cover everything in bass fishing. From there, you can then start to experiment and try other rods or get more of the same, so you don't have to retie as much as is what I did to begin with. Hope that helps. For more tips and tricks like this, visit bassresource.com.